Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine trying to buy a small toy. Right.
That's a little figure.
Yeah, and you find yourself in a line longer than for, like, a new phone or some big luxury brand drop.
Seriously.
Yeah, we're talking queues wrapping around blocks, stock just vanishing instantly. And some reports even mention, a bit of friction, people getting tense trying to grab one.
And what is this thing causing all the fuss?
It's a character named Labubu. That's Labubu.
Labubu. Got it.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like this isn't just, some flash-in-the-pan toy trend.
Not at all. This whole global craze around Labubu, it's giving us a really fascinating window into like a big cultural export wave.
Huh. Interesting.
Definitely. So today we're doing a deep dive, and we're drawing heavily from a recent report by 36 Krypton. They're a pretty big Chinese online media outlet.
Okay.
And what this report really makes clear is that Labubu isn't just some cute collectible. It's actually a pretty significant Chinese cultural export.
Right.
And it's coming out of this huge, like, multi-billion-dollar company, Pop Mart.
Ah, Pop Mart. Okay, yeah, I know them. So our mission today is basically to get inside that report.
Exactly. We want to explore why. Why has Labubu just exploded in popularity like this all over the world?
And how Pop Mart is handling it all. Because that kind of demand must be intense.
For sure. How they're navigating it strategically, and also what this whole phenomenon tells us about the power of IP, intellectual property.
Right, the characters themselves, the brands.
Yeah, how powerful that is on the world stage now. So we want to take you right into this exploration.
All right, let's do it. Where do we start? The scramble.
Let's jump right into that, the scramble for Labubu. Because the 36 Krypton report, it paints a really, really vivid picture of what's happening right now.
Yeah, it sounds pretty wild. The report talks about how hard it actually is to find Labubu stuff in stores.
Mm-hmm.
Like, stores are just incredibly packed. Sometimes it's hard to even, stand or move around.
Wow.
And big chunks of the stock, especially the really popular things like the plush pendants and the figures,
Yeah.
they're just gone almost as soon as they arrive.
Yeah. The examples in the report really drive this home.
Like what?
Okay, so there's this store in Taipei, in Chimending. Even during heavy rain, right? Huge lines outside.
No way.
And they had to put in a strict limit, 1 item per person. That's it.
1 item. Okay.
And back in mainland China, the report says you can't just wander in hoping to find something. Fans are basically glued to WeChat groups waiting for any hint of a restock.
The insider info loop.
Totally. And even the staff, they can't tell you when stuff is coming. No fixed schedule.
And this isn't just an Asia thing, right?
Yeah.
The report mentioned overseas, too.
Oh, yeah. Big time. It highlights that lots of Pop Mart stores overseas are facing the same thing. This one doll is hard to find situation.
So where else?
Well, demand is so crazy that in Seoul, apparently, you might need to queue up the night before a release.
Overnight. For a toy.
Yep. And it got so intense in places like Osaka and also the UK that they actually had to, temporarily suspend sales.
Suspend sales.
Well, the source specifically mentions a BBC report about conflict breaking out in the UK over stock. That's what led to the suspension there.
Conflict. Actual conflict.
Yeah.
Over Labubu.
It sounds nuts, I know. But it really feeds into that core question the report asks. Why is this little doll sometimes harder to get your hands on than, say, high-end luxury goods?
That's a good question. And all this demand, it must be affecting the resale market too, right?
Absolutely. It's spilling over massively. The report points out this interesting fluctuation.
Oh.
For one specific series, the Macaron generation, resale prices actually dipped below retail for a bit a few months back.
Yeah.
But now, with this massive global demand surge, those prices are shooting way back up again.
So any advantage people had finding deals on the secondary market is kind of evaporating.
Seems like it. It's changing the whole dynamic.
Okay, so the scarcity is undeniable. It's creating this really intense market. But how did Labubu even get to this point? Like, becoming a global icon?
Yeah, how did a collectible toy get this visible? The report gives some pretty compelling clues.
You're starting to see Labubu pop up everywhere, aren't you?
Totally. Celebrity sightings are a big one. Liu Yifei was seen with Pop Mart stuff in Italy.
Okay.
David Beckham shared something related online. And the one that really, blew up globally.
Let me guess. Rihanna?
Yep. Rihanna photographed at LAX airport with a pink Labubu accessory, like a little bag buddy.
Yeah, I saw that photo. It was everywhere. That felt like a real moment.
It really did. And it's not just these one-off celeb moments. When the new Labubu 3.0 series dropped worldwide, April 25th.
Big launch day.
Huge. It wasn't just trending like crazy on Weibo in China. It set off these simultaneous, incredibly long queues at Pop Mart stores in major cities all over.
Where, Legra?
Los Angeles, London, Milan, Tokyo, all at the same time. Massive lines.
Wow. Okay, so the global reach is real. And this kind of buzz must be catching the attention of, like, the financial world, too.
You bet. The report mentions JP Morgan recently initiated coverage on Pop Mart.
Oh, interesting. What did they say?
They gave it an overweight rating, which, usually means analysts think the stock will do better than others in its sector.
Right. Positive outlook.
But they went further. They actually compared Labubu's acceleration. They said it could become a global super IP.
Super IP. Like,
Potentially reaching the scale of something like Hello Kitty.
whoa. Okay, Hello Kitty level. That's a massive comparison.
Isn't it? It puts Labubu in a whole different stratosphere. And obviously, this kind of explosive popularity, it's tied directly to Pop Mart's whole business engine, their strategy.
Absolutely. Can't happen in a vacuum. The report mentions Pop Mart's market value is already huge, right? Over 300 billion Hong Kong dollars.
Yeah, and their stock price hit a new high recently, like 233 Hong Kong dollars a share, right around their shareholder meeting in late May.
So what's Pop Mart's take on why Labubu is hitting so hard right now, according to the report?
Well, their perspective is that this isn't really sudden success. It actually comes from Labubu being a character that's been loved for a long time within that Chaowan circle.
Ah, the trend play or designer toy scene we mentioned earlier.
Exactly. So there was already this really loyal, deep fan base built up over years.
Okay, so it had roots.
Right. And Pop Mart believes the product quality and the way they've presented the character, in vinyl, in plush, it really captures and amplifies Labubu's whole forest elf vibe. It just resonates.
And that resonance is clearly showing up in their overseas numbers. The U.S. market growth sounds particularly insane in the report.
It's pretty mind-blowing. Get this. In just the first quarter of this year, 2025, their revenue in the U.S. market equaled their revenue for the entire year of 2024.
Wait, seriously, Q1 equaled all of last year?
Yep. That's basically 100% growth in just 3 months. Way beyond what even they were expecting.
That's just incredible acceleration. And they already have a decent footprint there, right?
Yeah, over 20 stores across the U.S., more than 1.7 million members signed up. And the report says they're planning 2 more big landmark flagship stores there, too.
They're doubling down.
It seems like it. Pop Mart's CEO, Wang Ning, sounded really confident. He said North America's revenue in 2025 could potentially hit the level of the entire company's revenue back in 2020.
Wow. And 2020 revenue was, what, about 2.5 billion CNY?
2.513 billion CNY. So that's a huge target for just one region.
Their overall overseas goals must be pretty ambitious then.
Oh, yeah. The report says they're confident they can hit over 100% growth overseas overall in 2025.
Another doubling.
And they're aiming for total overseas sales to go past 10 billion CNY, making international a really core driver for the whole business.
Okay, so massive ambition. How are they actually trying to make this happen? Does the report get into their overseas strategy?
It does, yeah. And it's pretty interesting. They seem very strategic about partnerships and where they place themselves.
Like the Louvre example.
Exactly. Being the first trend play brand to have a store literally at the entrance of the Louvre in Paris. That's a big statement.
Yeah, kind of blending street culture with high art. Smart.
Yeah. And apparently that Louvre store is doing incredibly well in terms of sales per store, partly because they have exclusive stuff there, like that Labubu Artistic Quest series.
Oh, exclusive drops. Class.
And they're not stopping there. They're planning a whole separate independent exhibition for another one of their big IPs, Hirono, inside the Louvre later this year.
Inside the Louvre itself. Wow. Okay, they're really going for that cultural validation.
It seems like it. And another key part of the strategy highlighted in the report is signing local artists.
Ah, that makes sense. Tapping into regional tastes.
Totally. They mentioned partnering with a Thai artist, Molly, for the CRY Baby series, which is apparently huge in Thailand.
Right.
And signing a U.S. artist, Libby, for Peach Riot, which has really taken off in North America.
So they're customizing the IP development for different markets.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah, that localization seems crucial. And their store location strategy fits too. They focus on really high traffic landmark spots.
Not just any mall.
Right. And the goal isn't just quantity of stores. It's about creating this immersive experience, rich in culture, centered around the IP.
So the idea is like getting a limited blind box after seeing the Louvre exhibition feels more special. More memorable.
Exactly, making the purchase part of a bigger event.
It's clever branding.
And to back all this up, the report notes they restructured things last year in 2024, set up 4 big regional headquarters:
For where?
Greater China, the Americas, Asia Pacific, and Europe. The idea is to be more efficient, respond faster to local needs, basically build a stronger foundation for all this global growth.
Makes sense. You need the internal structure to support that kind of expansion. So it's not just about selling figures then. They're thinking longer term about the characters.
Definitely. The report really emphasizes Pop Mart's long-term vision for building out these IPs, and Labubu is like exhibit A of that investment.
How are they doing that? Beyond the toys themselves.
Well, they're using different strategies, like bringing Labubu and other characters from the Monsters series to life, letting them interact with fans directly at places like their Pop Mart City Park.
Like a theme park element.
Kind of. And they're actively creating content, too, to give the characters more personality.
Content like what?
The report mentions things like the Labubu song,
Okay.
and this viral elf cheerleading thing, and a Zimomo Big Chief dance.
Okay, so songs and dances.
Yeah, things that make the IPs feel more alive, more vivid, deepening that emotional connection beyond just, owning the plastic figure.
So moving them towards being actual characters with stories.
That seems to be the plan. The report mentions future plans for animated shorts for Labubu and others.
Animation. That's a classic IP building step.
Right, and the goal is explicitly stated: evolve them from collectibles into characters that become like emotional companions for people.
Drawing inspiration from.
They mention companies like Disney, how those characters resonate globally through stories.
Big ambitions.
For sure. And Pop Mart's core belief, according to the source, is that the lifeblood, the commercial value of an IP, it isn't just about that initial pop. It depends on long-term sustainable investment and operation by the company. They really emphasize respecting time, respecting operation. It's a marathon, not a sprint for them.
That makes sense for building lasting brands, but this kind of hypergrowth, this global push, it can't all be smooth sailing, right? The report must talk about challenges, too.
Oh, absolutely. It's pretty upfront about the major hurdles Pop Mart is facing right now.
You're sure?
Well, the biggest one circles right back to where we started. All this accelerated demand. It's creating serious difficulty in buying goods problems again, or maybe even worse than before.
Demand is just massively outstripping supply.
Exactly. And the main bottleneck, according to Pop Mart's COO, quoted in the report, it's the supply chain.
Knew it.
Yeah. The sheer level of excess demand, especially for the plush products, is just way ahead of how fast they can actually scale up production and logistics.
Plush is harder to make quickly than vinyl, I guess.
Seems like it. The COO calls this their single biggest challenge over the past year, and it's continuing right now. He also mentioned that planning for products has to happen up to 6 months in advance.
6 months lead time. Wow. That makes it almost impossible to react quickly to a sudden viral surge like Labubu's having.
Right. You can't just flip a switch. And this creates a really interesting, almost awkward tension with the resale market situation.
How so?
The COO commented on how prices are currently inverted, meaning resale is higher than retail.
Which we already discussed, yeah.
But he stated that Pop Mart's actual core goal is the opposite. They want products to be cheaper on the secondary market.
Cheaper? Why?
So that anyone who genuinely likes the product can actually buy it at the regular retail price without fighting scalpers or inflated prices.
Okay, that's counterintuitive to how hype usually works, but I see the logic from a fan perspective.
It really highlights the massive gap between where they are right now operationally and where they want to be in terms of accessibility.
Yeah, that's a tough spot. The scarcity fuels hype, but they actually want to eliminate it.
Exactly. And beyond the supply chain crunch, the report points to another big challenge: management.
Managing the growth?
Yeah. The COO said that early on, the main challenge was just pioneering the market, getting established. But now, with this explosive global growth, the biggest problem is managing it all, especially the overseas teams.
How big are those teams now?
Over 1,000 foreign employees, the report says.
Wow. That's a lot to integrate quickly.
For sure. So the challenge, as they put it, is fundamentally about people. Understanding diverse overseas consumers and managing local staff and partners effectively across all these different regions.
That makes sense. Different cultures, different markets, different ways of working.
Though the report does note they're making progress, like teams in key regions such as North America are apparently moving towards being 100% locally managed now.
Okay, so localization is happening at the management level too. That should help.
Yeah, right. Hopefully. So yeah, it's this really complex picture, isn't it? Incredible global success, hitting up against some pretty significant growing pains, operationally and organizationally.
That sums it up well. This deep dive into the 36 Krypton report really shows the sheer scale of the global demand for Labubu,
Yeah, unprecedented in some ways.
powered by Pop Mart's really strategic approach to going international and building up the IP itself.
Right.
But it also lays bare the huge challenges they're grappling with, the supply chain stuff, managing this suddenly massive global team.
So thinking about this, what does it all mean for you listening in?
Well, I think it's a pretty compelling story about how cultural exports can pop up from maybe unexpected places.
Yeah, not just movies or music, designer toys.
Exactly. And it shows the incredible power of building and nurturing IP really strategically.
But also the flip side, the immense complexity a business faces when it tries to scale that fast globally, especially when demand just goes through the roof.
Totally. It leaves you with some interesting things to think about, doesn't it? For sure.
Yeah.
Like given Pop Mart's stated goal, wanting products to be more accessible, even cheaper on the resale market, how do they actually square that circle?
Right. How do you balance that intense desire, that scarcity that's currently driving so much of the Labubu hype worldwide?
With the practical reality of fixing supply chains
Right.
and actually achieving that goal of letting anyone who wants one buy one easily at retail.
It's a fascinating paradox. How they navigate that will be really interesting to watch.